Legacy products, old equipment, and long tail SKUs can kill your margins and create chaos. If you're relying on tribal knowledge instead of modernizing how you find, validate, and decide on parts, your profits will disappear. Welcome back to Agile Talks. I'm Sean Kane, and I'm joined by my partner in crime, Mr. Mark Beatty. How you doing, Mark?
Yeah, I'm doing great, Sean. How are you this morning?
Awesome. So today we're talking about a very unsexy, very expensive problem: supporting legacy products, old equipment, and long-tail SKUs while quietly killing your margins. In most industrial businesses, the catalog never really shrinks, right? You accumulate special case parts, one-off customer accommodations, and old product lines that still need support. On paper, that revenue looks really healthy. Underneath, the complexity tax can be enormous. Mark's seen this up close, and this conversation will set us up for why better part discovery, validation, and decision-making tools, including additive, matter so much. So Mark, to kick us off, give us a story. What does it actually look like to support these legacy products the old way?
I'd flip the discussion completely around. I'd challenge people to think about, what if these parts, these problem parts, are actually margin multipliers just hiding in plain sight? What if you actually had a strategy and an approach to allow you to attack those markets, those parts in a strategic way? But more importantly, what if we were able to actually keep our customers happy, right? Instead of having tough discussions on why we're exiting parts, let's have a discussion on how we can keep these parts active long enough, for their needs. I think that's a really, really interesting way to look at it. Many companies do see this side of the product portfolio as a burden, but I think there's a lot of value there. And if you take a step back, there are actually companies all across the United States that flourish specializing in end markets, MRO, and afterlife. So these businesses are not just cropped up for no reason. They're making money. So are some of these OEMs, are some of these manufacturers leaving fruit on the vine, an untapped margin because it's difficult to solve?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I totally agree about flipping the script. But give me let's walk through a specific situation where a company was supporting some old equipment, some discontinued parts. Seemed fine on the surface, but when you dug into it, the margin impact, the operational pain were bigger than anybody realized, right? Can you think of where that happened? Because I think that's important.
Yeah, we faced it all the time in my previous world, and it's a difficult decision. I think what you need to realize is, how was that part structured? How was the cost basis structured? How was the manufacturing of that part structured at volume versus what you need now, right? And those economies don't work out all the time. If you're trying to produce a part that used to run at 500,000 pieces a year, and now you only need a few hundred, yeah, of course, the cost and the margin of that part is going to be upside down. Where we work with a lot of our clients, especially on the urgency, the need, and again, the exposure to the customer, is how much risk do you have by walking away from this part, right? By walking away, does this create enough tension between you and your customer and fracture that relationship enough that you're not going to get future looks? And that is kind of the undiscussed or undisclosed value of really being strategic in this world. So understanding kind of that transition is key. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is that pricing on the end of a product line or the end of a product life cycle is way more elastic than what it is when it's in high demand, right? When it's in high demand, there's usually multiple competitors and everybody's fighting for volume in order to support that capital investment that they made. But as competitors begin to fade, as the sexiness of that application or that product begins to fade, so do competition. And with that, when there's only maybe one or two solutions out there, you might be surprised what the customer is actually willing to pay in order to keep their application or their equipment or their program alive.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So, how about let's talk about the tribal knowledge as that hidden risk, right? A lot of organizations, they're relying on that one person who knows the product line or that one engineer who remembers the old equipment. Like, why is that tribal knowledge such a huge risk, both operationally and financially, right?
I mean, operationally, and this is no joke. Operationally, there were multiple instances where we would have one operator that ran that line for 10 or 15 years. So he knew all the ins and outs of that machine, right? Like what got it going, what upset it, right? What sent it into a tailspin. And when you move that, right, when you lose that operator or you move that piece of equipment, you kind of unravel all of those tribal knowledges. And a perfect example, like it was so kind of mundane, but it was he used to put a weighted bag at the end of the line in order to get the material to feed through the machine the right way. And no exaggeration, it took the new team months to figure out, like, oh, well, why isn't this thing running correctly? And it literally was a 5-pound sandbag. That sounds so stupid, but the reality is it cost tens of thousands of dollars to figure that out for a bag of sand. And that's not the only example, but that's kind of the one that sticks out in my head that we kind of laugh about often.
Yeah, that's pretty, that's pretty crazy. But like you said, it's probably one of multiple stories. We see it all the time. So if we flip it to a best practice, right? Where does a healthier way of supporting the legacy products look like? How do leading companies approach part discovery, validation, decision making differently, right? Who's doing it the right way?
Yeah, I think the biggest opportunity is being strategic about it, right? Not allowing the intel to pop up on you, not allowing end of life to pop up and just kind of surprise you. And that's typically what happens, right? Is that tooling comes out of end of life, the volumes no longer make sense. So what are we going to do? We're going to obsolete the part. And typically that time horizon is very, very short, from notification to the customer to kind of last time buys and then communication to the market. So I think every year it should be built into your strategy. Hey, what's at risk, or at least what's in target this year to be obsoleted? And then again, being thoughtful. Do we want to continue? Do we have the capabilities? Do we have the technology to continue to support kind of this transition? Or do we need a partner to kind of offload some of that risk? And I think that's where, whether you're continuing to run it in a traditional manufacturing sense, or you start to look at newer technologies to kind of lessen that burden, that is a perfect opportunity to do it, right? To say, okay, this machine used to run at 500,000 pieces a year. It's now to a couple hundred. Is it worth it, right? Is the relationship at the customer worth it? Is the exposure of walking away from this part worth it? Should we pursue alternatives? And if the answer is yes to 2 of the 3 of those, then that's where I would urge companies to really consider what's next.
Without going too deep into additive, right, or AI, we understand those to be the solution to these challenges, right? And we see that mindset finally starting to change with this legacy support, right? So, not too deep technically, but is that the solution that you see out there? Is it moving to additive? Is it getting the AI integrated? Right? We believe so, but just give your thoughts on it. Right?
I think it can be, Sean. I'm very apprehensive to ever say like one piece of technology is the magic bean to ail all your problems. Mm-hmm. I think it can be, though.
Yep.
So whether you're using an AI platform to identify suppliers at risk, whether you're using AI to help you with your analytics and decision making, I think those are interesting ways versus if a planner or someone in procurement is trying to manage hundreds of thousands of parts, he or she's not going to have the time typically to get into the weeds. They're going to be focused on the top 20. And that's how some of these challenges arise. It's not malicious. They're not doing it on purpose. They just pop up. So I think AI can certainly help in some of the decision making. I think additive can certainly help mitigate some of these transitions. You know, if a company deems this part of their portfolio is more important or there's more risk than they currently understand, you could certainly build a plant, right? And that plant's sole responsibility is dealing with high mix, low volume. That's an option. So there are lots of ways out there to kind of, skin the cat, if you would.
Yeah.
But I think it comes down to what makes sense for your business. And the other side of it, it's probably building a roster of solutions. It very rarely is going to be one size fits all for everyone. But if you kind of build this roster where you have flexibility and you have the means to react to different challenges, I think that can be super powerful.
For sure. Yeah, so folks, the story here is that legacy products and these long tail SKUs are not just a service obligation. They can quietly distort your whole cost structure if you don't modernize how you find, validate, and decide on these parts. So for leaders asking better questions, that the long tail is often the first step. Thanks for joining us on Agile Talks. I'm Sean Kane with Mark Beatty, and we'll see you on the next episode.
See you, everybody.